Today we have an Atlanta family led by a man who made so many sacrifices with the cooperation and duty of his wife, who also made sacrifices for their family. They've been married for over 80 years. They have 5 children, 14 grandchildren, 19 great-grandchildren, and 3 great-great-grandchildren. Take a second to make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and click the notification bell for all updates.
I'm really excited about this story. Dennis Turner Sr. and his wife Doris are both 99 years young. They have 5 children who work as doctors, lawyers, dentists, and administrators, but their parents never finished high school. Joe Ripley got to meet this incredible family today. So Joe, what's their secret to success here?
And you know, they really made me feel like home too. This family simply put it in one way. They had good examples to follow. A mother and father who invested in their children's education and well-being and instilled in them an attitude of work that's still paying off.
The first thing you notice in Dennis Turner Jr.'s house, his family's wall of fame, full of newspaper clippings, photos with famous politicians, and other accomplishments.
And responsibility and being the very best that you can be.
Turner was the first black graduate of Emory's residency program. All 4 of his siblings have college and advanced degrees as well. Their parents, Dennis Sr. and Doris Turner, never finished high school.
We've had loving parents who are 99 years old, who have been married for 80 years, who provided a good home for us, stability.
Dennis Sr. joined the Army and served in World War II, loading supplies onto trucks and ships and guarding prisoners of war.
I was able to come back and come home. When I come home, still come home to a segregated country.
Mr. Dennis Turner Sr. is speaking on how he served the country in World War II, but came home to a segregated America. This is what black men like Mr. Turner had to deal with in his day. After serving in France, he came back home to Atlanta, where he worked as a mechanic, a diesel mechanic. For decades, Mr. Dennis Sr. worked at Cummins. That's where they manufacture engines found in diesel trucks, the semi-trucks you see on the road every day, carrying everything we need for this country to operate. So all the commercial drivers, they know all about Cummins and appreciate the work of diesel mechanics like Mr. Dennis Sr.
I met him when I was 14, and he kept coming around, so eventually I fell in love with him, married him, been with him for 80 years, and I don't regret not one bit.
Now isn't that something? Mrs. Turner said that she met him when she was 14 years old. Mr. Turner, he was also 14 years old. They're the same age. He kept going by her house showing interest because you didn't have all that DM foolishness going on back then or dating sites with people playing games. We're talking about around 1939. There was only one way, this way, which I still believe is the best way. She stayed with him all of those years, 80 years, and said that she did not regret it.
The two have 5 children, 14 grandchildren, 19 great-grandchildren, and 3 great-great-grandchildren. As for the next generation of history makers,
if they had some role model to lay down a good foundation for them, they would follow that foundation.
Even though he wasn't able to do those things, even though my mom was not able to become an RN, we were able to do some of the things that they could not do that we were able to do.
Mrs. Turner made a great point. I don't want to gloss over that. Her advice for raising a strong family. She said if the father and mother laid down a good foundation, set good examples, the children will follow. That's the key though. Men and women properly vetting to make sure that they choose to do life with good people, with good character, with a good foundation. You can't build anything with guys playing in the streets or guys who don't have their heads on right. You need a real man. Just like men can't build anything with stray alley cats. To get that solid man, you need to be a real woman. A man can't build with adult workers. A man can't build with women with bad attitudes or misandrous, or women who adopted the ideology of liberal feminism. And I'm not talking about a political party. It's not about Democrats and Republicans. It's about morals and spiritual values. You can't build with selfish women, more concerned with social media pictures and selfies and nonsense. Mrs. Turner was the rock that Mr. Turner needed, and it's women like that who make the sacrifices that men make worth it.
this family full of black history has more history to make, and they encourage others to do the same.
It can't just be about you, it's got to be about others as well.
All 5 of Dr. Dennis Turner Jr.'s daughters went to Spelman College right here in Atlanta. No other family has been able to surpass that record so far.
That's Dr. Dennis Turner Jr., the first Black surgeon to graduate from Emory's residency program. He was also a captain in the Army, a founding member of 100 Black Men of Atlanta, and he's been married for 54 years. He's got 5 daughters. All 5 of them attended Spelman College in Atlanta. That will be the granddaughters of Mr. and Mrs. Turner.
I love Miss Doris.
Miss Doris was
She
a hoot.
said he started coming around and I couldn't help but to fall in love. 80 years.
80 years, and you saw how
Amazing.
sharp their memories were, especially Miss Doris. But a big thank you to the service of all the Turners. You saw Dennis Turner Sr. there serving in World War II, his son also serving in the Army, and it just shows you the generational history standing on the shoulders of giants. We hear it from civil rights icons all the time, but it truly means something with this family here.
Certainly a lot to be proud of.
I have to say, it made me smile. I was just smiling the whole time watching that package, though.
Hard not to, right?
Joe, thank you so much.
Yeah, that was a great story, Joe. Shout out to Joe and 11 Alive. Mrs. Doris credits her husband, Mr. Dennis Sr., for changing her life for the better. She wanted to be a registered nurse, but after she fell in love with Mr. Dennis, they got married, started having children. She said this to the reporter, quote, "So I thought more of my children than I did the RN. So I gave up the RN and raised my children up. So I didn't lose anything. Being there for their family, her husband, their children was more important than her working or being a boss chick, like what we would call modern women now." Mr. Dennis, he worked for decades as a diesel mechanic. He provided for a really good woman, that's his wife and his children. His wife was on his program, and that program produced a long-lasting relationship and a real legacy. Mr. Dennis Sr. had a solid relationship, just as men like Dr. King, just like Malcolm X, just like Medgar Evers. A solid man with a solid relationship, a strong man who laid the foundation, but it also took a cooperative woman, a feminine woman, to keep the family together and maintain respect for the man who created it all. Mrs. Turner is a part of an era of great wives like Mrs. Coretta Scott King, Dr. Betty Shabazz, and Dr. Myrlie Evers, who, by the way, just celebrated her late husband, Mr. Medgar Evers. It's been 60 years since he was killed in Jackson, Mississippi. Dr. Myrlie, one of my personal favorites. In the late 90s as a kid, I wrote her a letter to thank her husband, to also thank her for their sacrifices, and she responded too with a handwritten letter that she mailed to me. I shared her letter with my classmates. I taught our class about Medgar Evers when I reported on their family, so much love to the Evers family as well. As for the Turners of Atlanta, we're talking about generations deep, built by Mr. Dennis Turner Sr., with the support and cooperation of his lovely wife, Mrs. Doris Turner. Blessings to their family is so inspirational. They're 99 years old, married for 80 years. Special thank you to Sylvester. I appreciate you, Sylvester, for all of your support, as well as Kay Glenn, Brian, Dark Power, and Debt Free Dad. Don't forget that you can support this channel as well. Links to Cash App and PayPal are below. Ladies, fellas, want a balanced analysis, want the truth from a woman's perspective? Then you're going to want to subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to like and share.